Honourable members, I did indicate that I was making and amended what is on the order paper to read not later than 3:15 p.m. Majority Whip, please, if you could just take your seat now. Take your seat. Honourable members, I wish to make this communication relating to interruption of business. Honourable members, Section 40 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012 requires the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury to make a public pronouncement of the budget policy highlights and revenue-raising measures for the national government each financial year. In this regard, and as communicated earlier this week, the Cabinet Secretary will be making this pronouncement shortly. Honourable members, you will observe that this activity is taking place earlier than has been in the previous years. This practice was adopted to allow the judiciary and Parliament to submit to the National Treasury their budget estimates earlier during election years to enable conclusion of budget matters before the National Assembly adjourns Senate year prior to a general election. Honourable members, before inviting the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury to make the proposed budget pronouncements for the financial year 2022-2023, I wish to recognize the other Cabinet Secretaries, Principal Secretaries, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, development partners, senior government officials, and other invited guests, and notably the Right Honourable Raila Amolo Odinga, who are seated in the Speaker's row. You are all welcome to the National Assembly. Now, therefore, honourable members, pursuant to the provisions of the same Section 40 of the PFM Act and the National Assembly Standing Orders 25A and 244C, I will now interrupt business of the House. Honourable Joshua Kutuni, it is disorderly to be communicating with a member from the other side of the aisle from your place. More particularly, yes. So, honourable members, let me repeat. Now, therefore, pursuant to the same provisions of Section 40 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012 and the National Assembly Standing Orders 25A and 244C, I will now interrupt business of the House to allow the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury to make a public pronouncement of the budget policy highlights and propose revenue-raising measures for the national government for the financial year 2022-2023 and the medium term. Cabinet Secretary, please proceed to make your pronouncements. You're welcome.
Mr. Speaker, it's once again an immense privilege for me to present to this august House and the people of the Republic of Kenya the budget statement that highlights the budget policies and the revenue-raising measures for the financial year 2022-2023. The presentation of this statement is in fulfillment of the requirements of Section 40 of the Public Finance Management Act and the Standing Order number 241 of the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, our partner states in the East African community have agreed that Kenya can proceed with the early presentation of the budget statement this month. This aligns the budget calendar with the timelines for the general elections scheduled for August 2022. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency the President Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta took office in 2013. At that time, the country had just completed implementation of the first medium-term plan of the Kenya Vision 2030 and was on the third year of implementation of the 2010 Constitution. During the first 5 years, his administration designed and implemented an economic transformation agenda under the second medium-term plan of Vision 2030. The agenda focused on five key pillars. 1, improving the business climate by maintaining macroeconomic stability, addressing security challenges, and reducing the cost of doing business. 2, closing the infrastructure gaps. 3, promoting investment in key sectors such as manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism. 4, sharing prosperity by investing in pro-poor programs in health, education, and social welfare. And 5, fostering the devolved system of government to enhance service delivery. Building on the progress made under the economic transformation agenda, the government initiated the Big Four agenda anchored on the third medium-term plan or the Vision 2030. The government focused on transforming the lives of Kenyans through strategic interventions on food and nutritional security, affordable housing, manufacturing for job creation, and universal health coverage. Mr. Speaker, while we celebrate the remarkable achievements from the past investments in the priority programs under the economic transformation agenda and the Big Four, the country continues to grapple with various social, economic, and environmental challenges. In preparing this year's budget, we extensively consulted Kenyans. The insights, comments, and suggestions have informed the priorities laid in this budget. Key among the concerns: 1, the high cost of living; 2, high level of unemployment among the youth; 3, income inequality; and 4, public debt burden. Mr. Speaker, we have noted that most of the concerns raised by Kenyans were associated with the negative effects of COVID-19 pandemic. In response, the government developed and implemented appropriate economic policies and rolled out targeted programs that cushion the citizens and businesses from the adverse effects of the pandemic. A strong recovery in 2021. Following the easing of the COVID-19 restrictions, reopening of the economy, as well as targeted stimulus intervention by government, the economy registered strong recovery of 9.9% in the third quarter of 2021. Overall, the economy is estimated to have expanded by 7.6% in 2021, a much stronger level from contraction of 0.3% in 2020. In 2022, the economy is projected to stabilize at 6%, supported by recovery in agriculture, industry, and service sectors. Mr. Speaker, to further strengthen this growth outlook, the government will continue to safeguard macroeconomic stability by ensuring inflation remains within the government target range, while interest rate remains stable to support growth in private sector credit. The foreign exchange market is largely expected to remain stable, with foreign exchange reserves providing buffers against shocks in the foreign exchange markets. The current account deficit is projected at 5.9% of GDP in 2022, supported by a rebound in horticulture and tea exports, as well as increased inflows of remittances. Mr. Speaker, the economic outlook may be affected by emerging domestic and external risks. On the domestic front, reemergence of COVID-19 variant and possible adverse weather conditions could reverse the projected economic recovery. On the external front, the ongoing conflict in Eastern Europe has created uncertainties that will affect the global economic outlook through disruptions of supply chains, rising global oil prices, and increased inflationary pressures. Mr. Speaker, the government will monitor all the domestic and external risks and take appropriate policy actions to cushion the economy and Kenyans in the event the risk materializes. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the government has progressively implemented policies and programs under the Big Four agenda to foster socioeconomic development. However, the COVID-19 pandemic slowed down the implementation and full realization of the expected benefits. Mr. Speaker, to further accelerate economic recovery and improve livelihoods, the government will continue to implement and expand the economic recovery program in this budget. The program is hinged on a sound macroeconomic policy framework that aims to, 1, enhance security for our citizens and their properties while fostering a secure and conducive business environment. 2, scale up development of critical infrastructure in roads, rail, energy, and water sectors. These will ease movements of people and goods, reduce the cost of doing business, enhance access to social amenities, and promote Kenya's competitiveness. 3, enhance transformation of key economic sectors for broad-based sustainable recovery by promoting agricultural productivity, growth in manufacturing, environmental conservation and water supply, support tourism recovery, and ensure sustainable land use and management. 4, expand access to quality services in health, education, and appropriate social safety nets for the vulnerable population. 5, support the youth, women, and persons living with disabilities through government-funded empowerment program. 6, continue supporting the evolved system of government through active engagements, policy guidance, and timely transfers of shareable revenues. These will indeed strengthen county government systems and enhance quality service delivery. And lastly, sustain implementation of various reforms targeted at enhancing efficiency in the delivery of public services. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of the economic recovery program that's also supported by the International Monetary Fund is fully on track. The IMF program has 4 key objectives. First, scaling up the COVID-19 response by supporting health and other sectors most impacted by the pandemic. Second, reducing debt vulnerabilities by pursuing a revenue-driven fiscal consolidation plan that targets to stabilize debt to GDP ratio and subsequently put it on a downward level. Third, supporting the structural and governance reforms while addressing weaknesses in state-owned enterprises with a view to enhancing efficiency in the management of economic and fiscal affairs. And fourth, implementing specific measures to strengthen the monetary policy framework and support financial stability. Mr. Speaker, alongside the aforementioned, the government has continued with the implementation of various stimulus programs to manage COVID-19 pandemic, support businesses, and general employment in order to minimize the adverse socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, in the financial year 2021-2022, the third phase of the economic stimulus program and the implementation targeted, 1, the Kazi Mtaani program to create employment for over 200,000 youth across the country. 2, preparation of the education sector for the transition in the competency-based curriculum by considering new classrooms to accommodate more than 1 million people expected to join junior secondary schools in January 2023. 3, construction of additional 50 new level 3 hospitals in uncovered and densely populated areas across the country to enhance access to medical services. 4, supporting livelihoods of farmers within the sugar belt, provision of fertilizer subsidy to small-scale tea farmers, and completion of the ongoing intervention in the COVID subsector. And 5, supporting communities affected by drought in arid and semi-arid regions of the country. Mr. Speaker, in this statement, I'll be proposing additional allocation to various activities under the economic stimulus program to further support livelihoods and stimulate economic activities. Mr. Speaker, in this budget, the government will strive to enhance the role of the private sector in the economy, including financing infrastructure projects through the public-private partnership, support micro, small, and medium enterprises by facilitating access to finance, invest in ICT and digital infrastructure to support the use of digital platforms to facilitate e-commerce and efficient delivery of public services, promote and strengthen local and foreign resource mobilization efforts to sustain funding of the identified development projects and programs, improve social protection through targeted policy interventions and programs, to promote local production processes and domestic supply value chains, and lastly, strengthen the monitoring and evaluation system for quality outcomes of the projects. Mr. Speaker, implementation of the socio-economic policies and structural reforms have seen Kenya graduate from a low-income to a middle-income country, with estimated per capita income of Kenya shilling 244,000 in 2021. This is a significant leap of 92.1% from the level of Kenya shilling 127,000 in 2013. Our vision is to achieve the upper middle-income status by 2030, with a minimum per capita income of at least Kenya shilling 453,000. Mr. Speaker, looking back since 2013, when the current government took reign of power, Kenya has achieved monumental milestones, especially at the macroeconomic level. For instance, the economy has grown by 155% from the value of Kenya shilling 5.3 trillion in 2013 to Kenya shilling 13.5 trillion in 2022. Two, a strong economic growth, averaging 4.6%, has been realized over the period, including impressive recovery of 7.6% in 2021 from a contraction of 0.3% in 2020, occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. Third, cumulatively 5.1 million new jobs in both formal and informal sectors were created. Fourthly, the economy has maintained macroeconomic stability, with inflation rate within target and interest rates remaining stable. The average annual inflation rate declined from 7.2% in 2013 to 5.7% in 2021. Fifthly, the commercial bank lending to the private sector doubled from Kenya shilling 1.5 trillion to Kenya shilling 3.1 trillion in 2021. Sixth, successfully lengthened the average time to maturity for treasury bonds from 7.4 years in June 2013 to 9 years in March 2022. This has improved the maturity profile of domestic debt and supported refinancing risk mitigation. Seventh, the foreign exchange market has remained stable, with official foreign exchange reserves increasing from US $6.5 billion or 4.4 months of import cover to US $9.5 billion or 5.6 months of import cover in 2021. The current account deficit improved by dropping from 7.7% of GDP in 2013 to 4.9% of GDP in 2021, effectively supporting the stability of the foreign exchange market. Annual diaspora remittance grew by close to 300% from Kenya shilling 112 billion in 2013 to the current Kenya shilling 436 billion in 2022. Foreign direct investment rose from Kenya shilling 56.7 trillion in 2013 to Kenya shilling 75.1 trillion in 2027. Ordinary revenue collection has more than doubled from Kenya shilling 0.8 trillion in the financial year 2012-2013 to Kenya shilling 1.8 trillion in the financial year 2020-2021, and further to Kenya shilling 2 trillion in the financial year 2021-2022. The poverty prevalence rate declined from 36.1% in 2013 to 33.6% in 2019. Mr. Speaker, the ongoing police reforms aimed at protecting lives and enhancing general security of the citizens have significantly improved the ratio of police to citizen, from 1 policeman to 1,000 citizens in 2012 to the current 1 policeman to 462 citizens. With regard to the infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, the government has constructed an additional 10,500 kilometers of tarmac roads spread across the 47 counties, facilitating efficient movement of people and goods, thereby rapidly stimulating economic activities. Mr. Speaker, the completion of the standard gauge railway has not only eased movement of passengers during the period, but also led to the transportation of 17.6 million tons of cargo between 2018 and 2021. During this period, over 6.5 million passengers have used the standard gauge railway. This has had positive effects on the economy, including creation of jobs. Mr. Speaker, within the same period, the government tripled power generation from 1,300 megawatts to the current 3,900 megawatts. Of these, 73% is from green source, thus consolidating Kenya's leading generation of green energy in Africa. This has significantly increased the number of households connected to electricity to more than 8.3 million today, compared to 2.3 million in 2013. Mr. Speaker, the international oil prices have been rapidly rising for close to a year without any sign of easing. Conscious of the adverse impact of the high oil prices on all sectors of the economy, the government has taken deliberate steps to subsidize palm prices through the Petroleum Development Levy Fund. This action has stabilized palm prices and consequently prices of goods and services. The government remains committed to provide adequate resources to mitigate the rising cost of fuel. Mr. Speaker, in its pursuit to increase productivity while staying on the economic transformation trajectory, the government has sustained the pace of investment in all sectors. The agricultural sector remains the largest contributor to our GDP and priority under the Big Four agenda on food and nutrition security. The government has continued to support large-scale production of staple food, expanded irrigation schemes, increased access to agricultural inputs, and supported smallholder farmers to sustainably produce and market various commodities. In addition, the government introduced the warehouse receipt system to reduce post-harvest losses. Mr. Speaker, the price of fertilizer has more than doubled in the last 1 year and is still rising. To safeguard food security in the country, the government has allocated Kenya shilling 3 billion to subsidize farmers during the current planting season. We propose to allocate a further Kenya shilling 2.7 billion in the financial 2022-2023 to cushion the farmers while sustaining food production. Mr. Speaker, to strengthen land and property ownership, the government has issued over 5.3 million title deeds over the last 8 years. The government has also fully digitized land records in Nairobi Registry under the National Land Information Management System, referred to Ardhi Sasa program, to improve accessibility of land records and lowering the cost of land transaction. Mr. Speaker, Kenya's emergent oceans and blue economy will remain a key growth engine for the country. In the last 5 years, the country has heavily invested in measures to expand marine fisheries, grow marine transport and logistics, and establishing Kenya as a source of quality and cost-effective labor. These measures have resulted in the opening of the Lamu port, reopening of the port of Kisumu, establishment of the Nasa shipyards at the port of Mombasa and Kisumu, revival of the Kenya National Shipping Line, construction of an ultra-modern tuna fish hub at Liwatoni in Mombasa, among others. Mr. Speaker, with the proposed interventions, the sector is on course to be among the top 5 key contributors to the Kenyan economy and a game-changer in enhancement of the socio-economic fortunes of the Kenyans living next to our marine resources. Mr. Speaker, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government strategy to revive tourism sector has yielded positive results. The earnings from the sector had increased by 74% from Kenya shilling 94 billion in 2013 to Kenya shilling 163.6 billion in 2019. Tourist arrivals had also increased from 1.5 million to 2 million during the same period. In 2020, these numbers significantly declined due to the adverse effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, in the health sector, hospital bed capacity increased from 56,069 in 2013 to 82,291 in 2020. This increase attributed to over 1,912 new hospitals constructed across the country by the National County Government. Further, the introduction of free maternal health care program, dubbed Linda Mama, initiated in 2016, has led to the decline of maternal mortality rate by 26%. This program, alongside the Beyond Zero campaign, led by the First Lady, has significantly contributed to the improvement of maternal health care in the country. Mr. Speaker, to address the growing cancer burden over the last decade, the government has formulated appropriate policies and allocated sufficient resources to guide the delivery of cancer testing and treatment services. Some of these interventions include: 1, establishment of the National Cancer Institute as an overall coordinating agency; 2, construction and equipment of comprehensive cancer centers at Kenyatta National Hospital in Mombasa, Nakuru, and Garissa counties; and 3, support to 10 county referral hospitals to operationalize chemotherapy clinics. Mr. Speaker, to address the quality of education in the country, the government has rolled out radical reforms in the sector that have significantly improved the quality of education in the country. For instance, the investment in the sector has seen the number of primary schools increase from 26,549 to 32,437, and secondary schools from 7,174 to 10,413 between 2012 and 2020. The number of technical and vocational education training institutions also increased from 701 to 2,301 during the same period. As a measure of unprecedented success, transition rate from the primary secondary schools moved from 64.5% in 2012 to the current 100%. In addition, under the radical competence-based curriculum, the plan for the first group to join junior secondary schools in January 2013 is well on course. Mr. Speaker, following the sustained investment in human capital development, Kenya was impressively ranked position 3 in sub-Saharan African region with a human capital index of 0.55 in the year 2020. Mr. Speaker, from 2013 to 2021, the government disbursed Kenya shilling 151.6 billion through the Inua Jamii program support over 1.2 million vulnerable persons, among them orphans, the elderly, and persons living with severe disabilities. Further, the government disbursed Kenya shilling 6.95 billion to support women, youth, and persons with disabilities enterprises through 74,021 groups under the Uwezo Fund. Mr. Speaker, to improve efficiency in the delivery of government services, the government initiated and operationalized 52 Huduma centers across the country. In 2014, the government launched the e-Citizen platform, where 350 government services have now been successfully migrated. The platform has since served over 27.2 million customers while raising Kenya shilling 87.1 billion in revenue for the government. Mr. Speaker, in 2013, the government successfully rolled out implementation of the 2010 Constitution. The 47 county governments, independent commissions, and other institutions established by the Constitution were duly operationalized, albeit with huge financial requirements, thereby straining the country's fiscal position. Mr. Speaker, to build on the milestones achieved so far, we'll be implementing the following policy, legal, and institutional reforms to improve the business environment, increase efficiency in public service delivery, and strengthen transparency and accountability in public finance management. Mr. Speaker, the government has continued to implement various reforms in procurement to improve efficiency and transparency, enhance good governance, and promote savings in the procurement process. Among the reforms is the procurement of an end-to-end e-government procurement system, whose pilot phase will commence in July 2022, with a target date for full rollout to all ministries, departments, and agencies in January 2023. Mr. Speaker, on framework contracting, we have submitted to this House for enactment the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Bill 2021. This bill provides for multiple awards where several bidders can be awarded the same contract. Once enacted, it will hasten the delivery of services to citizenry and support local farms, particularly in specialized areas like pharmaceuticals, supply of foodstuffs, and commodity markets. Mr. Speaker, further, we have put together a framework that harmonizes the qualification for supply chain management personnel that clarifies competencies for the various cadres in the supply chain management function. In this respect, I direct all procuring entities to adhere to the requirement of this framework. Mr. Speaker, the government commitment to empowering SMEs owned by women, youth, and persons with disabilities Finance Company continues to play a leading role in the delivery of affordable housing in Kenya. I am pleased to note that since September 2020, KMRC has disbursed over 2 billion to 7 primary mortgage lenders and is currently processing an additional 7 billion. To provide a sustainable source of funding and to complement the existing credit lines, the company whose bond was recently listed at the Nairobi Security Exchange successfully issued its first corporate bond of Kenya shilling 1.4 billion under the medium-term note program of Kenya shilling 10.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, since the launch of the Credit Guarantee Scheme in December 2020, total loans extended to micro, small, and medium enterprises under this scheme had surpassed Kenya shilling 2.2 billion by December 2021. This has expanded access to affordable credit to micro, small, and medium enterprises to 45 counties across 11 different sectors of the economy. To enhance coverage of the scheme, additional participating financial intermediaries will be brought on board. Further, the government will seek support of development partners to increase the scheme's capital from the current Kenya shilling 4 billion to Kenya shilling 10 billion over the medium term. Mr. Speaker, to deepen capital markets, the government is undertaking a review of the legal and regulatory framework to address emerging issues in the capital market space. These include, among others, aspects on collective investment schemes and investment-based crowdfunding. In addition, the government is installing a new central security depository system at the Central Bank of Kenya to support planned reforms in the secondary trading of government bonds. Mr. Speaker, to enable more investment advisors offer investment advisory services, I propose to amend the Capital Markets Act